The basketball court swordsman, new book report, right in front. I remember that it took me more than a month from the end to the release of the new book last time. And this time I just broke away from the world of One Guard. Less than a week later, I brought this sword holder for everyone. The reason for the faster speed is not because I cut corners, nor because my attitude is not serious enough. Rather, I had already started to conceive and write before the completion of One Guard. So when you count it, the book actually took longer from conception to release. For this book, I put a lot of effort into it. You can also see that this one is different from the previous focus on players. This time, our protagonist is a coach, a man who has reached middle age and is not so strong, but a bit more cold and thinking. For everyone, this is a brand new journey. But for me, this is also a new challenge. After all, I have never focused on such a character before. But please rest assured, I will do my best to complete this unique challenge. Through the accumulation of the previous 2 books, this time, I will present the best to everyone. At the same time, the new era needs data and support, just like a seedling that needs everyone's irrigation. So I hope you all, click and collect. After all, everyone's support is my motivation. Above, thank you all. The Basketball Court Swordsman Chapter 1, 2 Unlucky Ones. Boom. Hansen only felt as if he had been slammed by someone, his head was dizzy and painful. Hey, sir, how are you? Answer me. What the is going on? Xiao Hansen cursed and opened his eyes, and the dazzling white light immediately shot into his eyes. It took about 2 or 3 seconds before his eyes finally adjusted to the bright light. Hansen was finally able to see his surroundings, but in the next scene, Xiao Hansen couldn't help but shudder. The first thing that rushed into Hansen's eyes was a huge face, to be precise, a black face covered with sweat and 2 big nostrils still spraying heat. This face is very close to him, almost close to each other. What the hell? Hansen was completely stunned, and as his head was dizzy, he seemed to think of something. Hansen's last memory is that he and his friends drank too much, and he seemed to have been drunk by a little girl. Then he got here, and what he opened his eyes to see was not the beautiful girl beside the bed, but a sweaty black man hugging himself. Hey, sir, are you all right? Answer me. The black man who was in front of Hansen asked again, and a drop of sweat on his forehead fell on Hansen's face. It's okay. It's okay. Damn, where is this? Hansen hurriedly wiped the sweat that dripped on his face, and then pushed away the man in front of him, otherwise the next drop might fall into his mouth. At the same time, he was also very surprised. How did he open his mouth just like birds? Jewel, leave that guy alone, we've already attacked. The guy who was pressing on Hansen finally ran away until another man's voice came. At this time, Hansen's eyes suddenly opened up. Spotlights, wooden floors, cheerleaders, flushed crowds in the stands, 2 basketball hoops and 10 players in the game. Hansen couldn't help rubbing his eyes, he was at the scene of a basketball game. Where is this? Where am I? Hansen stood up from the floor and asked people around him in a panic. But everyone around him watched the game attentively and shouted to cheer. No one cared about him, who was accidentally knocked down by the player. On the field, the number 21 who just rushed into the audience for saving the ball and knocked Hansen directly to the ground made a long shot from beyond the 3-point line, and there was another cheer. And Hansen's voice for help was naturally drowned out by the cheers of the fans, like a pebble thrown into the ocean. D, 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 D. At this time, Hansen heard an abnormal noise in his mind. The data analysis module is activated. A burst of mechanical and electronic sounds echoed in Hansen's mind. He knew that his life might have become very different. The huge cheers still wandered behind Xiao Hansen, until he closed the door of the toilet in the arena. The sound finally stopped abruptly. Standing on the sink in the toilet, Hansen finally saw the appearance of his body in the mirror. He has messy hair, thick eyebrows, some scum on his face, and most importantly, he has yellow skin. Yellow skin, which made Joe Hansen a little grateful. At least he hasn't completely become another person. Yellow skin, this is the only common feature of his new body and the previous body. Xiao Hansen turned on the faucet and poured cold water on his face. But he didn't wake up like he imagined, lying in his messy bed. He is still standing here, standing in this empty toilet, looking at the strange self in the mirror. At this time, there was another tingling in Xiao Hansen's head. After that, many things suddenly flashed before his eyes. Some pictures appeared in his mind one by one. It was the original memory of this body. Hansen Zhou, a Chinese American, was born in China in 1982 and immigrated to the United States with his family when he was 6 years old. My father is a businessman, and my mother is an ordinary housewife. Hansen was a little bit disappointed. He thought everyone who could sit in the first row of the basketball court must be rich. But the fact is, his father left him nothing. After coming to the United States, Hansen's father was addicted to gambling. When he was 10 years old, the body of the gambler's father was found in a cornfield on a farm on the outskirts of Indianapolis. He was shot twice. The reason for his death was his inability to repay huge gambling debts. At the age of 18, the clever Hansen was admitted to Indiana State University with unremitting efforts. This makes Hansen a little relieved, at least he finally has a smart head. I thought I could change my destiny after I was admitted to college, but a month before the start of school, Hansen's mother died in a car accident on the way home from a night shift from a part-time job in a supermarket. The perpetrator escaped on the spot and didn't even help call an emergency call. His mother's was lying on the street for nearly half an hour before he was finally spotted by a passerby in the morning. The United States is vast and sparsely populated, and the Hansens live in a prosperous area. If something like this happens in China, it will certainly not drag on for that long. Due to the late rescue, Hansen lost his mother 1 month before entering the university. Since then, the hapless Hansen was helpless in the United States. Hansen studied statistics when he was in college. Although he was smart and sensitive to numbers, due to his childhood, Hansen didn't communicate with people very much. He was always alone and had no friends. This caused him to change several jobs after graduation, unsatisfactory. Hansen couldn't get along with colleagues and leaders. After recalling Hansen's memory, Hansen couldn't help but shook his head. Maybe it's really destined, this guy and his life trajectory are almost exactly the same. His father owed gambling debts and was forced to jump into the river. His mother died in a traffic accident 1 month before he went to college. Of course, the difference is that Hansen doesn't have such a clever mind. He just went to an unknown Pheasant University in China. After graduation, Hansen, who came from Pheasant University, naturally did not do a few serious jobs. But because he loved basketball since he was a child and knew the NBA well, he started working as an NBA statistics statistician on an unknown small website. The job is very simple. In fact, it is to go over the wall to the foreign data website, copy and paste those professional player data to the domestic website, nothing more. Although the salary is not high, the job has no technical content. But at least this job Hansen is still interested, and after studying the data every day, Hansen can be said to know the NBA world well. Although I can't talk about professionals, he is definitely an out-and-out knowledge of the ball among ordinary people. 2 unlucky ghosts with such similar names, no wonder God would inject his soul into this guy. It seems unlucky, it is really a natural attribute of Hansen and Hansen. For example, just now, on the side of basketball, the players on the court jumped into the audience and flew to save the ball. They were unbiased and knocked over Hansen. That is to say, Hansen lost consciousness. Recalling the strange incident that had just happened, Hansen got goosebumps. But then, he immediately became excited again. This is undoubtedly a traversal. According to the plot in a Chinese online novel, after traversing, relying on previous memories, wouldn't it be possible to buy a few lottery tickets and get rich? In the past, I was afraid of being poor in China. Now when I come to the capitalist land of America, how can Hansen also become a rich man? However, after thinking about it carefully, Hansen was lost again. Today is January 18, 2009, and the day Hansen was drunk in China was the evening of January 17, 2009. And even if Hansen traveled back to the past, he did not remember any lottery tickets. Number. Sure enough, the novels are all deceptive. Unlucky Henson looked at the strange and familiar self in the mirror and sighed. Why did God choose him for such a useless crossing? At this moment, Henson suddenly recalled the mechanical and electronic sounds that had just echoed in his mind. What does the phrase, data analysis module is turned on, that sounded inexplicably just now? Data analysis module, sports website data analyst, smart mind, sensitivity to numbers and knowledge of the NBA. Henson tried to connect these things. What can he do with these things? You can't aspire to be a tramp on the first day in the United States. His previous life had been messed up, and now he had another chance. Henson didn't want to lose money anymore. By the way, the memories just stopped when Henson changed jobs. He didn't even know what his current occupation was. Although the character of the former owner was unpleasant, but his Bachelor of Statistics from Indiana State University is not just a vagrant. After a whistling in his mind, Henson in the mirror suddenly turned pale. Hey, this top student, who is now himself, is actually a scout for an NBA team. The Basketball Court Swordsman Chapter 2, Henson's Past. In 2007, after Henson changed his third job and was still unsuitable, under the introduction of university professor Wayne Winston, he managed to get a job as a data analyst with the local Indiana Pacers. Although Wayne Winston was also born in statistics, because he was once a teacher of Mark Cuban, he became a data analyst for the Mavericks at the invitation of Cuban in 2005 and officially entered the basketball circle. Born in the cornfield, Winston has been a basketball fan since he was a child and a fan of the Indiana Pacers. It is precisely because of this that Winston was able to link mathematics and basketball, two seemingly irrelevant things together. With the help of Winston, the Mavericks led the league into the era of data analysis. This math guy gave a lot of suggestions to the team coach on the formation of troops, and they have achieved good results. Because of this, Winston also has some reputation in Indiana's basketball circle. Hearing that Henson was a student of Winston, the Pacers were naturally very excited and happily accepted him. I hope that this wise and talented Chinese student can lead them into the era of data analysis. However, the world will never be as beautiful as a fairy tale. Henson, a guy who only understands mathematics but not basketball, has done a very bad job in the position of data analyst. He often says that some team coaches do not understand at all, and they are very good at the game and unhelpful mathematical formulas. Not everyone is Winston, able to closely integrate two otherwise unrelated industries. Naturally, Henson's position was gradually replaced by others. After that, he was sent to the scout department and became a scout who was running around. It's not because of how unique Henson sees people. This guy who doesn't understand basketball at all doesn't even know the difference between Kobe Bryant and Courtney Lee. The Pacers management just gave Winston a face and did not fire his students. He was assigned as a scout only because this position requires running around, lest the Pacers coaching staff look at him upset. Henson couldn't help shook his head. The previous owner of this body was really awkward, blinded by such a high degree of education. After spending 2 years with the Pacers, it turned upside down. Although Henson has Winston's face to sell, he is now on the verge of being fired. He just crossed over, and Henson didn't want to be unemployed right away. He said he must keep his job in the NBA team. The salary of ordinary NBA team employees is not much higher, but being able to work in the NBA can be regarded as fulfilling one of my dreams. In the past, working as a data porter on a small domestic website, Henson dreamed that he could truly integrate into the unreachable circle of the NBA. Now that I really have this opportunity, we must seize it. And as a scout, Henson has many free games to watch every year. He can make money and go to the scene every day to watch football, even if he can't be rich. This kind of life Henson is also satisfied. After washing his face, Henson returned to the court. At this point, the game seems to have entered a timeout. There are no players on the court, but energetic college cheerleaders performing. Henson was drooling at the sight. Young American girls are in good shape, ha 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 ha. No, I'm a scout now. Cough 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 cough. The most important thing now is work. But how should the scout work start? Henson is also one of the first two big. He first looked at the wooden floor of the stadium, which read, UCLA Bruins. It turned out that this was an NCAA game. It's January, and all NBA teams are preparing for the June draft. I believe that Henson is not the only NBA scout who is ambushing at the scene. Although it was difficult to learn about the NCAA in China before, Henson still knew a little about American college basketball. If the American basketball ring is compared to a big tree, then NCAA is the backbone of this big tree. Only when the main trunk is strong can it bloom and bear fruit in a dense manner. Most of the flying beasts and admired stars in the NBA are the fruits and flowers of the NCAA trunk. American college basketball is a huge talent pool. Some of them may not play basketball again after graduation, but everyone. And some people may become the next epic-making superstar, calling the wind and rain in the basketball world. How do NBA teams tell whether a college player is a superstar or a mediocre? This depends on their strong scouting network. And UCLA is a gathering place for talents in the NCAA College League. As one of the most famous basketball schools in the United States, countless NBA stars have come out from here. Sky Go, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Wharton, Reggie Miller, etc., are all produced by UCLA. The young people who play at UCLA are usually the best student players of this age, so every game of UCLA can be said to have attracted the attention of NBA scouts. But so far, Henson has no impression of all the players on the court. He looked up at the scoreboard, and only 5 minutes left in the second half to end. In other words, within 5 minutes, if Henson can't figure out a way to produce a detailed scouting report, it is estimated that after reporting back to Indianapolis, he will be able to leave behind. Henson is indeed a fan, but it is still a bit embarrassing for him to make a detailed evaluation of a player in just 5 minutes. Soon, the timeout was over, and the hot and cheerleaders exited, and the sweaty Bronny ignited the atmosphere of the arena again. Henson stared at these players he didn't know at all, hoping to see the way. Just when he was completely focused, the electronic sound rang again in his mind. The data analysis module is open. Henson thought he had auditory hallucinations, but after a while, various numbers appeared in his eyes. Every player's height, weight, wingspan, age and other data, as long as Henson wants to know, will appear before his eyes. Henson swallowed. It seems that this crossing is not leaving him nothing. With the help of this data analysis module, he can obtain data that ordinary people can't get by just watching these players play. Henson smiled and sat on his seat. It was an inexhaustible road. "Sir, I think you are in my place." Just when Henson was ready to watch the ball, a young blond man appeared in front of Henson. "Your position?" Henson looked around. He remembered that he was thrown down just now in the first row. "Well, sir, you are very humorous. But I have to remind you, do you think people in such cheap suits can afford the first row of seats facing the bench?" the man said, reaching out and patted the gray on Henson's suit. Henson only realized that this guy was belittling himself. "Now, please go back to your seat. The game has started, and I must start my work right away. Damn it, can anyone come here to watch the game now?" Before Henson agreed, the handsome blonde pushing Henson aside, he sat in his seat and raised his legs. Henson fiddled with the brain he had just taken over, only then did he remember that the first row was indeed not his seat. He just wanted to go to the toilet, and when he came to the first row, he was knocked down. Although he was indeed sitting in the wrong place, the attitude of the blond man still made Henson very upset. He just said he wants to start work. Maybe it is the scout of which team. In the future, the two might meet again. Henson glared at the arrogant guy, then sat back in his seat. Well, the third row from the bottom of the side stand, sitting there Henson can't even tell who is on the court. Also, with Henson's current position in the team, how could the team arrange for him a seat in the first row? Maybe the group of coaching staff deliberately bought him a back seat so that he couldn't see anything, so he could leave after returning. Although the environment is difficult, those numbers will still appear before Henson's concentration. He forgot all the unhappiness and watched the game intently. Combining his years of experience watching football and these numbers, he must produce a scout report. At this time, the game has entered the most intense moment. In the last 5 minutes, UCLA led Arizona by just 3 points. This strong dialogue between the Pacific 12 League did not disappoint the fans. At this time, it was the offensive round of the University of Arizona. Arizona's number 13 defender received the basketball by running and shot directly and scored a three-pointer to tie the score in one fell swoop. James Harden, 3. The live DJ shouted loudly, making Henson remember the little guy with the beard. Through the original memory of this body, Henson knew that Harden was one of the top picks in this year's NBA draft. After carefully observing Harden, more data appeared in front of Henson, including the player's various abilities. However, the ability value is not shown in specific numbers, but represented by the 5 levels of ABCDE. To Henson's surprise, a college star guard and champion candidate like Harden, who has received much attention, has only C-level 3-point ability. Other people's 3-point ability is even worse, D and E are everywhere. But Henson soon understood that this scoring system should be based on the NBA. So these little guys who are still playing in the NCAA will not have too high abilities. Looking at it, Harden finally has an ability value to attract Henson's attention. Potential, A+. Well, with the help of the data analysis module, it's much easier to figure out which of these little guys is better. Henson rubbed his hands with excitement about his new discoveries and continued to watch. In the next round, UCLA attacked. It seems that they do not have a good way to deal with Arizona. Since Westbrook and Kevin Love left for the draft, UCLA has been lacking a star player to make a final decision. The small number 21 Bruins who just knocked down Henson took the basketball, but he didn't rush to attack, but patiently organized it on the outside. It can be seen that this number 21 is different from most offensive guards. He is a decent point guard. He first directed his own center forward to make an off-the-ball screen, and then waited for his teammates to go beyond the three-point line before giving the ball in time. After the ball, he did not stand there waiting, but immediately started looking for a new gap, ready to catch the ball at any time. It's a pity that his teammates seemed to be anxious, so they took the ball and shot. Under Harden's interference, the basketball knocked out of the box, and number 21 was just a background and returned helplessly. The focus of people's observation now is James Harden, but Henson is attracted by the performance of the 21st. He could see that the little guy's consciousness was very good, he was more calm than everyone on the court, but his teammates didn't cooperate well. What is his potential? Henson muttered to himself, then looked at the data before him. This rating is something Henson never expected. The number 21 guard who seems to be unknown and has no right to shoot is actually A-. Sir, what's the name of the 21st? Henson asked curiously a fan sitting next to him. The 21st of the Bruins. That point guard? It seems to be called Jrue Holiday. Who cares about him, I just want to watch Darren Collison kick Harden's ass. It seems that people do not have much interest in that 21st. But Henson smiled slightly, his scout report seems to have fallen. The Basketball Court Swordsman Chapter 3, Dear Posey. Is Jrue Holiday really unfamiliar? Of course not. This seemingly thin number 21 guard was also selected to the All-American team during high school. After all, it's not just any cat or dog who can play in UCLA. But compared to his teammate Darren Collison and Arizona super genius James Harden who have already proven himself in the NCAA, Holiday's aura is indeed a lot bleak. Darren Collison played in UCLA for 4 years, and even Westbrook was his backup. It is not difficult to imagine the popularity of this guy in UCLA. Not to mention James Harden. In ESPN's mock draft rankings, Harden has been ranked first. Among freshmen, it is difficult to find a guard who is more capable of scoring than Harden. Compared with them, Holiday is really not a star. Henson couldn't help picking up the paper and pen, he decided to record everything he observed first. James Harden's breakthrough to Darren Collison is simply easy. Collison was only thinking about offense, but he didn't invest much energy on the defensive end. In fact, this is a common problem with most young guards. In the eyes of those children, defense seems to be something that big men are born to do, and small men only need to score. Harden accelerated to break through Collison, but his breakthrough was unsuccessful, because Jrue Holiday made up the pass very quickly, blocking Arizona's number 13 genius from the outside. Excellent defensive awareness. Henson smiled happily. Holiday's defense is not that wonderful, but as a freshman guard, such a willingness to defend is extremely rare. Insufficient ability, you can train the day after tomorrow. But the mentality of many players is difficult to change for a lifetime. Do most young guards now know what defense is? Harden didn't expect that he would be blocked, and the thin number 21 was more difficult than he thought. But Harden was not obsessed with singles. Instead, he used a white forward who didn't look at others to pass the ball and assisted in the basket with a single hand. Wow! There was an exclamation in the arena, and Henson also found the memory of the white forward in his mind. Chase Buetinger, in high school, he was already a well-known buckler in the United States. Although Harden is a shooting guard, his passing vision is really good. Genius is really a genius. Buetinger's dunk is also very exciting, not losing to black players. But a closer look shows that Buetinger's potential value is only C+, and Henson quickly lost interest in the white forward. Even though Arizona's offense was very fierce, but now Henson still focused his attention on Holiday. In the next round, Holiday's offensive performance surprised Henson. After receiving a pass from the team's head star Collison, Holiday did not hesitate to make a layup for a direct kill inside. On the layup, he confronted Arizona power center Jordan Hill. Jordan Hill, this is another genius. With 1.7 blocks per game, he ranks second in the league. He is definitely an inside defensive gate that all guards want to avoid. However, after a fierce confrontation with Hill, Holiday was still able to make a drawbar action to avoid the block and then succeeded in a layup. This guy's finishing ability in the basket is amazing, and the power in his thin body is very powerful. If UCLA is willing to give him more mobile phone meetings, Holiday's data may be even more dazzling than it is now. In the next 5 minutes of the game, Holiday did not disappoint Henson in both offensive and defensive performance. Although this kid is still immature, he has great plasticity in all aspects. The data analysis module is not fooling people. It is no exaggeration to say that Holiday's potential is a dash. In the end, Arizona, which owns the Big Three of Harden, Buetinger and Jordan Hill, still won the UCLA without risk. Darren Collison waved his arm very unwillingly. A senior star player was defeated by a freshman. This is indeed not a glorious thing. Although UCLA lost, at least Holiday left a deep impression on Henson. Henson closed the little book in his hand, but it was still empty and nothing was written on it. Because Henson had already kept all the key points in his mind, the minds of high-achieving students really worked very well. After watching the game, it was already 10 o'clock in the evening. It may take less than 10 minutes for student fans to get from the gym to the dormitory, but Henson's journey from the UCLA campus to the hotel he booked is not that simple. Damn it, is this guy a fool? Henson cursed self as he took a taxi from the side of the street. Those guys from the coaching staff asked Henson to visit UCLA near Hollywood, but booked him a hotel in Long Beach. Long Beach belongs to Los Angeles, but it is a satellite city of Los Angeles. It is 40 kilometers away from downtown Los Angeles, and the crime rate is extremely high. It can be said that it is the highest crime rate in the entire Los Angeles area. Henson couldn't even imagine who lived next to his little hotel room. A Chinese living alone in a small hotel in Long Beach, it is no exaggeration to say that he risked his life. Even if the conditions were so difficult, the previous Henson was stunned without a single complaint, letting others bully. The cheapest air ticket, the cheapest hotel, even watching the football is the cheapest seat. Henson shook his head, what a poor creature. The basketball circle in the United States does not wait for people with yellow skin. Once your ability to work is no longer outstanding, this is the end. Finally, he got a taxi in Hollywood, where the crowds were surging. When Henson arrived outside the dilapidated small hotel where he lived in Long Beach, plus the sloppy traffic jam, it took nearly an hour. Henson spent almost all of his cash to pay for the car fare. In the end, the hungry Henson only used the remaining money to buy a sandwich that seemed to have no appetite in a small shop opposite the hotel. At 11 o'clock, I have to write a scout report. It seems that on the first day of the journey, I have to stay up late to work. All fate, all poor fate. With a hungry body and the same flat wallet, Henson opened the door and walked into his shabby little room. As soon as he leaped onto the bed tiredly, the iron bed made a creaking sound. Henson was so scared that he immediately got up. He was really afraid that he would fall apart the bed. Lying by the window, looking at the scene of Los Angeles outside the window, this is quite different from what Henson had previously imagined in China. High-rise buildings and paper-drunk gold fans are absolutely invisible here. Around the slums of Long Beach, there are only rundown low houses and some sneaky gang members. The breeze came slowly, blowing away a trace of fatigue. Henson took a bite of the sandwich in his hand but almost didn't choke to death. Cough 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 cough, fuck, is such a rough and dry thing for people to eat. After cursing, Henson angrily threw the Just Bite sandwich out of the window. Which lost it, doesn't it have eyes? Downstairs, someone shouted. However, that is no longer about Henson. After calming down, Henson sat down at the table, arranged his thoughts, and prepared the scout report. This time the scout report must be convincing enough. If he directly said that I saw Halodi's potential as a dash, it would definitely be considered a neurosis. He must use real data and excellent language to prove his vision and prove the data he saw. Henson forgot all the unhappiness, sorted his thoughts, and was about to start typing, but the phone in his pocket rang untimely. Henson used to be taciturn, so he had no friends in the United States before. It stands to reason that no one should call him at this time. But when Henson saw the caller ID on the phone screen, he understood everything instantly. Yeah, who else but him? Dennis Posey, a member of the Indiana Pacers coaching staff, is also an interface between the Pacers coaching staff and the scout department. Of course, due to Henson's previous poor work performance, Posey has long had no patience and affection for this Chinese who can only play with numbers. He just wants to quickly find a chance to blast Henson away, and then introduce his good brother to the team, and now a scout who plays for the Bulldogs of Butler University, let him replace Henson. In fact, this is also the reason why the coaching staff has been wearing small shoes for Henson. To sum it up in a Chinese phrase, Henson used to be occupying the pit and not shit. Hey, dear Henson, how about the trip to Los Angeles? Do you like the room we booked for you? As soon as the phone was connected, Posey's nasty voice came out. Excellent, the box spring beds here are just softer than Santa Monica Beach. Percy was stunned. When did this Chinese become so poor-mouthed? This guy Henson has never beaten back or scolded. Then I hope you can rest comfortably tonight, Henson. Because I have bought you a ticket back to Indianapolis at 6 o'clock the next morning. Tomorrow night, I want to see Ukla's scout report. Don't expect to email me, I want you to report to me personally. Posey's tone immediately became tough, and this little coach can only play a breeze in front of Henson. Damn it. Henson cursed secretly in his heart, the plane will be at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, and he will have to work tonight, which means that Henson has no time to sleep at all. This Posey is trying to find fault for himself on purpose. But in front of this proud coaching staff, Henson does not want to show weakness. After all, the coaching staff and scouts do not have a strict subordinate relationship, but rather a cooperative relationship. So Percy is not Henson's boss, he has no obligation to let that guy ride on his head. Maybe the former Henson could bear it, but don't expect the current Henson to swallow it too. Oh. That's really bothering you, Percy. Hang up first. There are still 2 blonde girls waiting beside me. By the way, the last time you went outside for a tryst and was caught by your wife, it should be calmed down now. Right. It's normal for old couples to be noisy, so don't worry about it. Maybe tomorrow, your wife won't let you sleep on the sofa again. Henson. How dare you? The phone was hung up before Posey could scold him. Henson smiled himself. Posey is really notorious about this, and even the honest scouts on the team who don't like gossip know it. When I return to Indianapolis tomorrow, I will let you meet Henson Joe again, dear Posey. The Basketball Court Swordsman Chapter 4, God Predicts. Henson stayed up almost all night, and Jules Hollidy's scout report spent all his energy and effort. To make Posey unable to fault, Henson must be comprehensive. He used his clever mind to enumerate a lot of data, including high-level data such as efficiency value, scoring per round, and lost points. Henson relied on his predecessor's good mathematical foundation, and he counted them clearly in the report. Persuasive. Of course, Henson is more than just playing with numbers. The biggest difference between him and the past is that he has been able to closely integrate mathematics and basketball. Looking at a very complete scout report, the tired Henson couldn't help showing a smile. He looked at the gradually brightening sky, as if he also saw his own gradually brighter future. It's also time to set off. If he misses this flight, he might become a cleaner for the Pacers even if he is not fired when he returns. After finishing all his luggage in a briefcase, Henson left the room. When he walked to the front desk of the small hotel, the hotel owner was sleeping with his legs on the front desk. On the counter, there was a rifle that looked a little old. In places like Long Beach, weapons for self-defense are indispensable. 209, check out. Henson knocked the counter, and the boss opened his eyes in disgust. The Chinese seemed to interrupt his dream of getting rich. Check out so early to avoid debt. No, work dictates. It's work. Let me guess, you won't be an FBI agent. The boss replied sarcastically. Henson's cheap suits and handbags made it impossible for his job to be noble. No, I'm a scout for the Indiana Pacers. I came to UCLA yesterday to look for talented players. Henson thought that the hotelier would cast admiring glances at himself and deliberately showed his identity, but he was completely wrong. Scout. Or the Indiana Pacers. God testifies that even their cleaners are more decent than you. Okay, you can go. I hope Larry Bird will treat you to dinner tonight, ha 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 ha. Also scouts, people now. The hotel owner went back to sleep after finishing everything, paying no attention to Henson. In a place like Long Beach where everyone can break the cowhide, it is not surprising that you meet the Secretary of Defense. Henson shook his head and left silently. My current self may be the worst scout in the NBA. Even the owner of a broken hotel looks down on himself. But Henson didn't get frustrated for long. He believed that this sincere scout report would change everything. Arriving at the airport and getting the ticket, Henson thought he could leave the disappointing City of Angels and head towards the big cornfield of Indianapolis. However, after the ticket was taken out, Henson was dumbfounded. The ticket in his hand is not directly to Indianapolis, but to Chicago. After arriving in Chicago, Henson had to transfer to Indianapolis. Originally, it only took 4 or 5 hours to fly directly from Los Angeles to Indianapolis. Henson had already counted everything up, and when he got to the place, he went home to sleep first, and healed himself. Get up in the afternoon to pack yourself, eat dinner, and finally hand over the scout report to the coaching staff with great energy, and then start to explain. Now it's all right, the plan is all messed up. A direct flight from Los Angeles to Indianapolis only takes 4 or 5 hours. But if you fly to Indianapolis after transit in Chicago, the time required will instantly become 8 or 9 hours. It seems that after Henson hung up the phone last night, the humiliated Posey was thinking to help Henson change his sign, nearly doubling the flight of the poor scout. Usually, people only know that players in NBA teams will conflict with players, and players will conflict with coaches. But a conflict between a coach and a scout is also quite terrifying. And such contradictions are not uncommon in the NBA. The intrigue behind them are often as exciting as games on the court. In order to force Henson to give way, the Percy really did everything. The transit from Chicago meant that it was 4 or 5 in the afternoon when Henson arrived in Indianapolis. He could not rest, nor could he have a good dinner. But when you get off the plane, you have to meet the peak traffic to rush to the Pacers' home stadium, Conseco Arena. If you are late, of course Henson can explain it, but for a scout who has a bad reputation, Henson's defense may be very pale and weak. While waiting for the transfer at the airport, Henson had no time to rest at all. Instead, he revised the report over and over again, checked for deficiencies, and organized language by the way to prepare for the evening. After finally getting on the plane, Henson has not been able to sleep well. The long-distance flight tested his stamina and perseverance. Of course, fatigue was also written heavily on Henson's face, making him look like a capable scout. At 5:15 in the afternoon, Henson's flight finally landed. Thankfully, This time he was sure that he was indeed in Indianapolis. After coming out of the airport, Henson immediately took a taxi. But he was embarrassed to find that the cash on his body might not be enough to pay the fare. In a very hurry, Henson forgot to withdraw money at the airport just now. He really admired the original self and refused to bring more than a cent of cash when he went out. Because in Henson's original plan, he was going to take the last bus from UCLA back to Long Beach. But last night Henson chose to take a taxi, which caused problems with his capital turnover. Damn math genius. It's so good for me. Henson scolded in his heart, but he had to explain to the taxi driver no matter what. Sir, listen to me. I don't want to go wrong, but I really don't have cash for you now. If you can leave your phone number, I will contact you and repay the car. 10 minutes after Henson got on the car, he still confessed to the driver. He had thought of his destination and got out of the car and ran, but today is the day of the game, and the vicinity of the Conseco Arena is definitely overcrowded. He estimated that he would be taken by the local police if he did not run 50 meters. When the time comes, it will be embarrassing for the thief not to say anything. Unlike Henson's expectation, the driver did not immediately throw him on the highway into the city, but looked at himself through the rearview mirror. Sir, you go to the Conseco Arena at this time. I am afraid it is not to watch the game. Because the real fans are now lined up outside the arena to check tickets. The driver asked suspiciously, he felt from the beginning. Henson is unusual. Dressed so shabbily, with a tired face, and in a hurry, the place where I got into the car was the most lively shrine in Indianapolis tonight. I'm an employee of the Pacers. Well, I know this is incredible, but please believe me, sir. I will pay you back the car money. Could it be that? The driver touched his chin. You are the locker room cleaner. Henson almost didn't bleed. Does he look like a cleaner? That hotel owner said the same in the morning, and now the taxi driver also said the same. If you can't deliver me on time tonight, maybe I will really become a cleaner, sir. You know, I have heard countless interesting talks in this industry. But no one would ever say that he is an employee of the Pacers. I want to believe you very much, but everything you say. Before the taxi driver finished speaking, Henson took out his work permit. There is a picture of Henson on it, as well as his position, scout. The driver looked at Henson, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. What an interesting guy. Even a guy like you can be a scout for the Pacers. It seems that our poor performance is not without reason. The driver complained. Hey, it's not my fault for the team to lose. Now, sir, please step on the accelerator. After the game, I will call you and pay the fare. I will use my reputation to guarantee it. For the Pacers' sake, buddy, I believe you once. The driver hesitated for a while, but nodded. Then he shifted gears to accelerate, and the car began to shuttle on the road. Henson let out a sigh of relief. His scout status finally played a role. The driver was obviously very familiar with the road conditions in Indianapolis. He bypassed all the congested roads, and without much effort, Henson was sent to the entrance of the Conseco Arena. Since there was a game between the Pacers and the Spurs today, the entrance to the arena is crowded with people. Henson didn't stop, grabbed the goal and ran away. Pushing away the crowd, went straight to the arena. When he took out his work permit and rushed into the arena and saw Posey, who was already balled in the office area, there was only 1 minute left before their agreed time. Dear Percy, I'm so thank you for your ticket. Henson was panting, his cheap suit and tie became messy as he ran. I thought you weren't coming, Henson. But it doesn't matter, maybe you really won't use it after tonight. Dennis Posey, an old man in his 50s, with bald hair and rich body, making him look greasy. This guy's dark circles are not much lighter than Henson. Maybe it was caused by his wife being forced to sleep on the sofa these days. Seeing Henson panting, Percy smiled triumphantly. He was about to reach out to grab the scout report in Henson's hand, but a tall man appeared in the hallway to interrupt the action. Percy, the players are warming up, what are you doing here? God, my assistant coach was still fooling around off the court 20 minutes before the game. The man shouted. Scared Percy hurriedly withdrew. Larry, I'm here to get the scout report, our scout has just returned. Posey, who was still arrogant just now, hurriedly defended the man called Larry in front of him. Scouting report after the game is over, you give me back to the court. Damn. The tall Larry flushed with anger. He was already very dissatisfied with the urination of the coaching staff. I really don't know how his predecessor put up with these guys. Wait for me here, Henson. After the game is over, I will come over to get the scout report. After being scolded, Percy glared at Henson viciously, threw the fire on Henson, and then became dingy. To leave. After that, the tall Larry stared at Henson again. I have to admit that this man is very bold. He seems to be born to give people a sense of oppression. But Henson was not afraid to look at him, but stared into the eyes of the tall man for a few seconds. Are you a scout for the team? Larry spoke just after looking at each other for a few seconds. Since most of the scouts are in direct contact with the coaching staff, he is not impressed by what the team scouts look like. What's more, Henson had no sense of presence in the team before as a transparent person. Okay. Damn, I thought you were a cleaner. Looking at your disheveled appearance, our cleaners are more decent than you. Henson felt he had internal bleeding. Well, maybe he really had the potential to be a cleaner. Dennis said you brought the scout report. Let's go and come with me to the luxurious box. Today, I want to hear your report in person. Larry beckoned and motioned Henson to follow him. Henson was stunned. This guy looked like the Guaner was bigger than Posey. Otherwise, Posey would not be so afraid just now. Wait, Larry. No, it's impossible. This can't be that Larry. Hey, are you deaf or stupid? I told you to go to the box with me. Seeing that Henson was unmoved, the tall man shouted back impatiently. This time, Henson saw the guy's face clearly. The hotel owner said something right in the morning that he might really be having dinner with Larry Bird. The Basketball Court Swordsman Chapter 5, Interesting Scout. Larry Bird, one of the greatest stars in the history of the Boston Celtics. At the same time, he is also one of the most well-known players in NBA history. He and Magic Johnson ruled the 80s together, and black and white hegemony was undoubtedly the theme of the NBA in that era. After Bird retired, Cardinal Auerbach was very eager for his disciple, Big Bird, to stay in Boston and inherit his mantle, and lead this ancient Green Army forward as a coach. But Bird did not stay. This rural boy born in a cornfield in Indiana chose to return to his hometown and develop his basketball career here. In 1997, Larry Bird officially became the head coach of the Indiana Pacers. In 2003, Bird became the chairman of the Pacers club. It was not until this season in 2009 that Bird finally took the position of club president. His authority covers the entire basketball affairs of the Pacers. Therefore, theoretically speaking, Bird is in charge of everything from players to coaches, from scouts to trainers. Although Bird took office in his first year, he has been in the management of the Pacers for many years and most people here are very familiar with him. But Henson is an exception. The former Henson had almost no sense of presence in the Pacers, and he didn't have direct contact with Bird. It is not surprising that Bird didn't know him. Henson followed Larry Bird and Pacers vice president, Bird's assistant Kevin Pritchard into the luxury box. Don't get me wrong, Bird didn't want to watch the game in the more lively stands. The reason why he and Pritchard chose the luxury box is because watching the game here makes it easier for the two to talk. After entering the box, Bird and Pritchard sat down on the sofa very naturally, as if Henson did not exist at all. It took a minute for Bird to realize that there was someone behind him, so Pritchard asked someone to move a stool and let Henson sit by the armrest of the love seat. Bird still did not look at Henson, but lit a cigar. This habit looks really similar to Auerbach. Maybe Bird also wants to be a basketball godfather like Auerbach, but for now, he is far from that goal. Henson was a little nervous. He originally thought he would only have to deal with the team's coaching staff this night. Unexpectedly, now he sat next to the two big men of the team by mistake. If something goes wrong, Bird really has the right to let Henson go. You know, Bird is a straightforward person. The face of University Professor Winston is not necessarily good here by Bird. But Henson understands that this is also his own opportunity. If he can make a good impression on Bird, how can Percy stand him? After all, this team is not his boss. As long as Bird nodded, maybe it was Percy who got off the hook. The stall left by Bird's predecessor, Donnie Walsh, is not bad. The only thing that makes Bird dissatisfied is the coaching staff. So as long as Henson performs well, maybe he can still play Posey a counterkill. Bird did not speak, and Henson sat on the bench obediently. Before long, the game on the field began. Until now, the San Antonio Spurs are still one of the best teams in the league. Although their core GDP has begun to grow old, these guys have magically maintained a super high standard. As soon as the game started, the Pacers were beaten 8-0 by the Spurs. The Spurs defense makes the Pacers at a loss, and the Pacers defense is as vulnerable as paper in front of Popovich's army. I don't understand. Daniel Granger, Jared Jack and Jeff Ford are all defensively, but why are the Spurs able to score easily? Look, another breakthrough. Seeing Parker easily break through the inside lane and succeed, Bird couldn't help but gritted his teeth and exploded. Jack's defense is good, but it seems there is no way to take Parker. Pritchard also shook his head. In front of the real strong team, they have no power to fight back. The problem does not lie with Jack, but the lack of maneuverability on the inside line, and it is impossible to make up for it in time. Bird and Pritchard turned their heads in surprise to look at Henson. Henson swallowed and dropped their heads again. He is nervous, he shouldn't talk to him. A scout dare to talk about game strategy in front of me? Interesting. Insufficient maneuverability inside? What are you kidding? Are you eager for two big guys to run as fast as a guard? Bird smiled playfully. The Pacers' starting center Jeff Ford was out. Notoriously fierce, and starting power forward Troy Murphy is an average player who can contribute 10+10 and shoot one shot per game. If even they can't contain Parker, then who can? No, you don't need to be as fast as a guard. As long as you can make up for Parker a little bit, you can buy time for Jack. Matt Bonner is not a very threatening center, so he sent a shorter post to defend Parker. Then let Fortes stare at Duncan, we shouldn't lose so many points. Henson continued boldly. He is not a professional coach, but his genius mathematics mind and the existence of data analysis modules make he can calculate many numbers with just the naked eye. It takes 2.4 seconds for Parker to break from the three-point line to the penalty area. Murphy takes almost 3.3 seconds to jump from the penalty area to the outside of the 3-second zone. Every time he arrives, Parker has overtaken. The heavier one Fortes, the speed is slower. As long as Parker passes Jack, there is almost no obstacle. If we replace Murphy with the 2.06 sporty power forward Masio Baston, we should be able to help defend effectively. To curb Parker's breakthrough. What a genius, what about our rebounds with the 2.06 meter bus ton? God, I don't want to listen to this idiot nonsense anymore. Pritchard gave Bird a look, meaning let him blast the scout out. But Bird didn't do this. Instead, he smiled, and then took a deep cigar. You can tell the time it takes for them to break through with your naked eyes. It's not necessarily accurate, but 89 is 10. Henson spread out his hands. In fact, his eyes can really show these numbers accurately. So, as Pritchard said, how do we protect rebounds when there is no advantage in height? You must be crazy, Bird, you are crazy. Pritchard simply ignored the two of them. Bird was actually discussing tactics with a scout, which is ridiculous. Henson ignored Pritchard's ridicule, but continued to speak. He knew very well that Bird remembered himself. What Henson has to do now is to deepen Bird's impression of himself. Austin's card position skills are very solid, and so is Foster. Let them get stuck in Duncan and Bonner to protect the penalty area, and then Daniel Granger will rush for the rebound. Granger is tall and has long arms. Very good. After hearing Henson's answer, Pritchard was a little surprised, and Bird stopped smiling. They know very well that this scout is not bullshit, nor is it a blind cat and dead mouse. He is very familiar with the abilities of the team members and is able to react accordingly. Henson can clearly see the abilities of the players on the court, although it is vaguely divided at the level of ABCDE, it is better than knowing nothing. Without the data analysis module, Henson would not even know who Mahio Baston was, nor would he have thought of letting Granger, a small forward with B+ rebounding ability, grab a rebound. In Henson's view, it is very easy to figure out the abilities of the players. But in the eyes of Bird and Pritchard, it is not a simple matter for a scout to know the team so well and can make a point. Afterwards, Bird and Henson always chatted without a word. What Henson said is not necessarily right, but he has ideas. For example, Henson thought he could try Granger to play power forward and Ford to defend Duncan. The reason is that, based on Granger's recent game data, his success rate against big men is as high as 77%, so why not let him go directly against the big men on the offensive end? Although none of the things Henson said can be put into practice immediately, the unusual numbers still amused the Big Bird. After all, Henson didn't have anyone's data report at this time, but he was able to explain every number clearly. In Bird's words, "You have some ideas in your head." In this pleasant atmosphere, the first quarter ended. As expected, the Pacers were blown up. 28-18, the first quarter of the game, the Pacers' current coach Jim O'Brien's team fell behind by 10 points. O'Brien was also born in Celtic family, but this guy didn't seem to learn much from Boston. Bird's face was ugly, he took a few more cigars, frowning. Henson looked at Bird with his blonde hair combing back. He was really oppressive. Now that Bird was in a bad mood, Henson didn't dare to say anything again. Nonsense, even Pritchard dare not. As a little scout, Henson naturally didn't want to hit the gun. "Scout, give me your report." Perhaps the cheerleader's performance was a bit boring, and Bird finally broke the silence. Henson immediately took out the file bag, this report might turn him over. With a cigar in his mouth, Bird opened the file bag, took out a neat stack of reports and flipped through it casually. Only one player. Bird's eyes widened. The scout is either very capable of persuading himself or just doesn't want to do it. Going to UCLA, he only provided a player report. Yes, there is only one player, because he is the only player worthy of our attention at UCLA this year. Henson smiled confidently. He has been waiting for this moment for a long time. The basketball court Swordsman Chapter 6, Henson's math class. Yes, there is only one player, because he is the only player worthy of our attention at UCLA this year. Hearing Henson's words, Pritchard didn't even bother to read the scout report. What is UCLA? It is the holy place that the best basketball talents in the United States aspire to. In that arena full of opportunities and genius, the scout only brought them a player report. Although the Pacers may not get too high a pick this year, there is more than one option. Bird may not be familiar with Henson, but Pritchard has heard of some of Henson's honorable deeds. It's not without reason that the original team's data analyst has become a small scout who needs to run around. After all, not everyone is like Cuban to find such an excellent data analyst. In this world, there are really not many people who can do both math and basketball who can do this job. And what's the scout report written by someone who doesn't understand basketball? Henson can say that Drew Holiday is one of the most noteworthy players, but he can't remove that one. After all, Holiday's predicted draft pick has never been in the lottery area. Did the people ahead of him die overnight? Drew Holiday. I know him. If the league still allows high school students to participate in the draft, he may still be able to squeeze into the lottery zone. But after this guy went to college, he almost disappeared. You also wrote in detail above. His average data per game in college is very mediocre. A player who can't dominate the game in the NCAA, I really don't know why he became the most watched one. When you just said this, I thought you will give me a copy of Darren Collison's scout report. But Drew Holiday. Bird looked at the first page of the report, bit his cigar and shook his head. Had it not been for Henson's remarks that made Bird feel a bit interesting, he might have let the scout out of the room. Indeed, Holiday's averaging data looks ordinary. But you have to know that this data may not reflect Holiday's true level at all, and the data will lie. Points, assists, rebounds, blocks and turnovers. Holiday's data itself is not problematic. The problem is that these data are not comprehensive enough, not objective enough, and cannot truly reflect Holiday's level. Mr. Bird, please continue to open the second part of the scout report page. In the face of doubt, Henson was very calm. With the help of the data analysis module, he can see that Holiday's potential is A-level, but others cannot. In order to persuade others, he was thinking about how to convince others from last night to today when he took the plane. After crossing, the owner of the body itself left Henson with a clever mind and superb knowledge of mathematics. So Henson thought, maybe he could use this to make a fuss. Bird turned to the second page of the scout report, and then he was confused. On the entire paper, a lot of numbers and mathematical formulas were written densely, and Bird felt a dull pain in his brain instantly. Whether it is points, rebounds, steals or blocks and assists, all these data have a significant correlation with the team's wins and losses. For this I used the t-test formula and correlation analysis, and the results support this view. For this purpose, I also collected data from each game of Holiday and University, and then comprehensively considered the influence and contribution of Holiday's various data to the team's victory and defeat. I used several mathematical models to construct. Hey, stop, Henson. Damn it, am I here to listen to your math class? Tell me something you can understand. Bird was a little impatient, and Pritchard was silent. Watching the show. The rumors are pretty good, and this guy Henson will only play with a bunch of mathematical formulas that the coach doesn't understand, and that doesn't help the team. He is not a scout, just a nerd. But after Bird yelled, Henson remained unchanged. He knew this would happen, and Henson certainly knew that Bird and the coaching staff didn't understand and didn't want to listen to those annoying formulas. But the reason why he still said this is to prove that Holiday's excellence is not just mere words, but is supported by complex data. Okay, then let's skip that annoying analysis. To be honest, I was annoying enough to calculate these formulas last night. Henson first used a self-deprecating way to ease the atmosphere, and then, persuasion was really real start. The data calculated by those complex formulas all point to a result, that is, Holiday's contribution to the team's victory is much greater than UCLA's head guard Darren Collison. That's right, Darren Collison averaged 14.4 points, 2.4 rebounds, 4.7 assists and 2.3 steals per game, which made him look more like a star. After all, even Westbrook had played him off the bench for the Bruins. But these statistics deceived him. In the eyes of everyone, when the Bruins attack, whether it is possession of the ball or the right to shoot, a large amount of it is in the hands of Collison. I have calculated that if Collison's possession and shooting rights are converted to Hua for Letty, his stats will be countless times better than Collison. And Holiday is a point guard, but the Bruins put him in the position of shooting guard for tactical needs. Holiday's scoring ability it is indeed better than the organizational ability, but one of his dilemmas when playing as a shooting guard is that Holiday can't touch the ball at all during most of the game. The ball is spinning in Collison's hands. Henson said, paused on purpose. At this time on the court, the Pacers and Spurs second quarter game has begun, but Bird is still intently staring at Henson's scout report and listening to his explanation. Henson knew, Bird listened. This means that his preparations were not in vain. You also said that data will deceive people's eyes. Then, how can you ensure that the numbers you list will not deceive my eyes? Bird continued to ask, the world of basketball is not just numbers. It can be described clearly. Well, of course I have other things to say. You continue to look through the scout report. I have attached a few pictures of Holiday shots and layups to the scout report. Mr. Bird, have you seen anything? They are all ordinary pictures, what do you want to express? Henson deliberately waited for Bird to ask him every time before saying that this would increase Bird's sense of participation and leave an impression on Bird. The clever mind of a mathematical genius is not only useful in mathematics. Now that Bird has asked, Henson is no longer selling it. Although Holiday uses his right hand to shoot the basket, he uses more left hands when he lays up and dunks. This means that Holiday is the kind of guard who uses both left and right hands in a very balanced manner. Most NBA players are left-handed and balanced, especially guards. You can hardly tell whether he is left-handed or right-handed just by looking at the dribble. But shooting and layups are the most intuitive way to distinguish between a player's right and left hands. Most players do not use their non-dominant hand to attack. However, there are some players who want to use their non-dominant hand to attack. The purpose is to make themselves more versatile and make their offense more difficult to defend. The hard work and effort required to achieve this goal is beyond ordinary people's imagination. Zhu Holiday happens to be one of them. Bird nodded slightly while listening. As one of the most balanced left-handed players in league history, Bird knows that it takes a lot of effort for a right-handed player to train his left hand to perfection. And you know, Holiday is not as talented as Bird. Perhaps he has sweated more than Bird. Isn't a rookie who knows how to use diligence to change his destiny more easily than a rookie who only depends on talent? Bird smiled after listening, and put out the cigar in his hand. Bird agreed with the last words Henson said. Even Pritchard, who was about to watch the excitement, was a little surprised. The Henson in front of him was completely different from the one in the rumors. His report really looks like that. One more thing is that I believe in my intuition as a basketball player. Zhu Holiday, judging from the rank we can probably get, it is definitely the best choice. Finally, Henson added one more sentence. Perhaps in Pritchard's opinion, intuition is a bit too illusory. But in Bird's view, a basketball player's intuition is essential. Because Auerbach, Bird's mentor, is a very intuitive guy. I heard you came here as soon as you got back to Indianapolis. Haven't you had dinner? Bird, who was combing his head, closed the scout report. From his smile, Henson could tell that he passed up. Before I had time to eat, I was almost late. You know how bad the traffic is on match day. Indeed, all Indianapolis people on game day want to watch the game. It's a pity that the team's performance today will disappoint them. Forget it, don't talk about it. Pritchard, man. Ask someone to show me. And Henson bought some food, he should be starving. Very happy to have dinner with you, Mr. Bird. Henson exhaled. Now he really wants to go back to Long Beach to thank the hotelier. That guy is simply a natural prophet. The Basketball Court Swordsman Chapter 7, Safe Clearance. As Bird said, the Pacers really lost at home today. It was a miserable loss. The Pacers team hit only 37%, and the team's offense basically relies on Daniel Granger's individual singles. The defense that the Pacers are proud of is not up to date. They let the old guy Duncan score 27 points, and at the same time let Ginobili, who came off the bench, made 8 of 10 shots and scored 26 points. 81-99, the huge score difference was written on the big screen at the scene, looking so dazzling. After this game, the Pacers' record became 15 wins and 27 losses, and the Pacers seemed to be getting further and further away from the playoffs. But Bird in the luxurious box was not upset by the result of the game. The blond old man with a big back shook the goblet gracefully and sniffed the aroma of the wine. Henson, who was sitting beside him, had just swallowed a good black pepper steak. What do you think of this game, Henson? Looking up, Bird asked another question without warning. Henson has become accustomed to this way of talking about Bird's thoughts and questions during this game. To tell the truth. Henson put down his knife and fork and wiped his mouth. Of course, to be honest. Sucks. Pritchard glanced at Henson, which was too true. In his impression, Henson was a taciturn person, how dare to say anything today. But Bird is not angry, after all, he is a guy who talks straight. People say that Bird likes to pretend as a player, but in fact, Bird just likes to tell the truth. Henson's answer was just in line with Bird's appetite. Yes, it sucks. So, your role is very important, Henson. We need to change, and the draft is the cheapest way for us to complete the transformation. Your player report is very interesting, you don't need to listen to it in the future. The coaching staff's arrangements have been arranged, and I will directly connect with me. Where to go and observe whoever you are, all follow my command. But again, I also need you to find me the best and most suitable players for the team. If you can't do it, Bird looked at Henson with an unquestionable expression. Otherwise, Bird is a natural leader. If I can't do it, I will be a cleaner. Henson laughed mockingly, maybe the cleaner is his own world. I hope in the future I won't have to see you mopping the floor when the players are sweating. Okay, today you go back and rest. I will contact you again for the next plan. Also, don't call me if you are okay, I have enough calls. Bird finished speaking and got up to leave, but Henson's cell phone rang. Henson took out his cell phone, and it was his old friend, Posey, who called. Hey, you idiot, didn't I let you stand there and wait for me? Where the did you go? Henson had just pressed the on button, and Percy screamed irritably and jumped uncontrollably. Come out. It seems that after losing, Posey was in a very bad mood. There is no doubt that Henson is his best punching bag. Posey's curse even reached Bird's ears through the earpiece. Bird, who was about to leave, looked back at Henson and couldn't help frowning. I'm in the luxury box, with Mr. Bird. Henson replied deliberately in a hesitating manner. You. In the luxury box with Bird. Oh, then I'm having an outdoor barbecue with the President of the United States. Don't play around, I'll give you 2 minutes, Henson. If you can't show up, you won't use it tomorrow. Mr. Henson will come, of course not to report to you. At this moment, Larry Bird's loud voice came from Posey's ear. He turned his head in surprise, and Bird was walking towards him. And beside Bird, he was following Henson, who hadn't hung up the phone. Posey's mouth opened wide. This guy may think he is a hell. From now on, Henson will directly dock with me. And your task, Percy. Bird stepped up and helped Percy tidy up the messy collar. Posey's body was trembling slightly, and he didn't even dare to get out of the air. Your mission is to lead the team to play that game for me. Bird now has a high voice in the Pacers management and has always been known for his iron fist style. Posey knew that Bird's attitude towards the coaching staff has been somewhat cold since the last president, Donnie Walsh, left. Walsh hired a coaching staff headed by O'Brien with the goal of returning to the playoffs. But this is already the second season of O'Brien's coaching staff in Indianapolis, and the team's record has not improved in the slightest. So not only Henson's position is at stake, but the position of everyone in the coaching staff is also at stake. Now facing Bird's tough statement, Posey was too scared to say a word. When it comes to changing the coach, Bird may have to discuss with the team owner. But if he wants to change his little offensive coach, Bird alone has this right. As you wish, Bird. This defeat today. I don't want to hear you explain, I just want to see the results. Now, go back and take a good rest, you have worked hard. Bird patted Posey on the shoulder and gave him a step down. Percy walked away with his tail in embarrassment, giving Henson a glance before leaving. That Chinese scout, count him lucky today. Bird, are you really going to move the coaching staff? You have a scout to directly connect with you? After Posey walked away, Pritchard asked casually. Move the coaching staff? No, at least not now. I know that O'Brien and the others will take some time. I believe Downey's eyesight. He has a reason for O'Brien and his team. But they had better not overestimate my patience. As for you, Henson. I don't trust the coaching staff too much, but I prefer to trust you, so don't let me down. I'm very happy to have dinner with you, I hope in the future you can also do your own job well. After speaking, Bird and Pritchard waved away. Henson let out a sigh of relief, he finally didn't lose his job. When Henson came out of the Conseco Arena, there were not many people left around the arena. Today the Pacers were brutally abused by the Spurs, and most fans chose to leave early during the garbage time. Henson found an ATM, then took out his business card and called the taxi driver. Today, I was able to retire completely, and I really thank the driver for his trust in me. Hello. Mr. Carter. This is Henson Joe, the Pacers scout who didn't pay for your car earlier. Yes, now you come to pick me up, and I will pay you the money for the car by the way. A few minutes later, a familiar taxi approached Henson slowly. Henson took a closer look, and it was the driver who drove him today. Mr. Henson, to be honest, I didn't expect myself to receive your call. After getting on the bus, the driver immediately chatted with Henson intimately. I won't break my promise, Carter. Take me home, 177, Starro Avenue. When I get to the place, I will pay you with the money for the previous car. Henson flipped through his mind and found his home address. The driver immediately stepped on the accelerator, and the old taxi rushed. Henson looked at the street scene passing by outside the window, and his mood suddenly became bright. From the journey to the present, Henson has never been so relaxed. Henson has spent the past 24 hours under high tension. Saved his job as a scout, and his previous life was cut off from him. Whether it is Hansen or Henson, everything will start from scratch. Now, Henson's zero is about to take the first step. It's basketball. Henson was killed and he couldn't imagine that he would be able to do basketball-related work on an NBA team. The trajectory of his life is like the street scene flying away outside the window, further and further away from the original route. So, are you really a scout for the Pacers? Carter, who was driving while Henson was traveling. Can there be fakes? I met Larry Bird today. Henson smiled triumphantly. Larry Bird, yes, he is a good guy. Is he tall, taller than he looks on TV? I can see that Carter is very curious, he is a true Pacers fan. Higher than on TV, and scarier than on TV, Carter. When he looks at you, your body seems to be transparent, and Bird can easily see you through. Thinking of today, Posey Henson was really impressed by the way he was afraid of Bird. So, did Bird tell you when he will change head coach? In today's game, O'Brien's defensive arrangement is nothing short of shit. He let Manu and Duncan score 53 points, so that the two add up. The nearly 70-year-old man scored 53 points. God! If Bird coached himself, he would never allow this to happen. I'm afraid it's impossible for me to know such a thing, Carter. I'm just a scout. What I have to do is not help Bird find the coach, but help the coach find the players he needs. Henson smiled and went straight to become for the players and coaches, that's a good life. Anyway, thank you for your contribution to the team, Henson. I hope you can bring the most potential players to Indianapolis. Carter said slowly and pulled over and they arrived. Thank you, Carter. By the way, this is the money for the car, which is paid together twice. Henson paid the money and was about to get out of the car to see his house, but was stopped by Carter. Keep my business card, and if you need a car, you'll be there on call. I'm doing something for the Pacers. You've been a great help, Carter. Be careful on the road. Henson waved his hand and watched Carter's taillight disappear into a distant corner before finally leaving. Henson didn't know what medicine Percy and Bird were selling in the gourd, but at least he was sure that Carter was definitely a good guy. I bid farewell to the driver Carter, and when Henson was about to look at his own house, the electronic sound appeared in his mind again. Achievement: to keep the scout job, please choose achievement reward. Subsequently, Henson presented some options. He suddenly discovered that in this world, maybe he can be more than just a scout. The Basketball Court Swordsman Chapter 8, New Task. Henson stood on the road, completely stunned. This so-called data analysis module may not be as simple as viewing the player's various data as he imagined. The power of this thing completely exceeded Henson's expectations. After a burst of electronic notification sounds, Henson suddenly appeared with several options out of thin air. He fixed his eyes and saw that everything written on these options was very good. Medal, excellent staff level 1, increase the trust of the team owner and president by 10%. Words, hometown discount, persuade local players to accept the offer from their hometown team. Medal, popular lover level 1, increase the love of local fans by 10%. These three options just appeared in front of Henson out of thin air, his body trembling uncontrollably. Too many unbelievable things have happened in the past 24 hours, he kept telling himself in his heart, hold on, be steady. Looking at the current situation, you should choose a reward yourself, and then you can trigger the corresponding effect of the reward. Henson shook his head and blinked hard. He thought he had hallucinations because he was too tired, but when he opened his eyes, these three options still lingered in front of him. Henson swallowed, and then chose the first award, the first level of outstanding employees. After the choice, the electronic voice in Henson's mind said, "Congratulations on getting the new medal." The options in front of him disappeared, and then the surroundings returned to calm, no different from normal times. Just like that, nothing happened. Henson didn't know if Larry Bird had become more trusting in himself, but he was sure that there was something extraordinary in his mind. It seems that as long as you achieve certain achievements, you can unlock rewards. If these rewards are really useful, they will have a huge impact on Henson's work. A cool breeze blew, causing Henson to wrap his coat tightly. Indianapolis in January was very cold, and whether Henson was willing to accept what had just happened, he didn't want to struggle anymore. He couldn't know if Bird trusted him more, so it didn't make sense to entangle the rewards. He plans to go home to rest first, and get a good night's sleep. Maybe the next day, Henson will find that all this is just an unrealistic dream. Starro Avenue, where Henson lives, is just an ordinary residential area, located in the Al Piano district on the west bank of the White River. A two-story duplex house, which is very common in the United States, with a small garden, nothing more. The house is not small for Henson. After all, he used to live in small shared houses in China. But this kind of house is by no means large in the United States. The most important thing is that the rent of the house is very cheap, and it takes only 20 minutes to go to the Conseco Arena by car. Henson wandered around his own house curiously, and found that everything in this house was orderly placed. Moreover, every piece of furniture was covered with thick dust, as if no one had ever lived. The house has a refrigerator and a kitchen, but the trash cans are packed with takeaway packaging. But when Henson walked into his bedroom, the situation was completely different. In Henson's bedroom, the walls are covered with various player data. The desks in the room are in a mess, densely covered with a pile of A4 papers, on which very complicated calculation formulas are written. There are even a few sheets of paper that have been scattered on the floor. Henson's few clothes were scattered on the bed and opened the closet door, but the inside was empty. It seems that the former Henson should be a workaholic. At least he is very passionate about mathematics. This guy should be used to shutting himself in his room to work as soon as he gets home, so the outside is as clean as he has never lived. And apart from work, he has almost no communication, because Henson's mobile phone has not stored anyone's ARC number except those at work. Henson is an out-and-out workaholic. He has no emotion, doesn't know how to enjoy life, is stubborn. Such a guy can live to nearly 30 years old, it is a miracle on earth. Henson didn't want to live the life he had before, nor did he want to live the life he had before crossing. So starting from today, let me recreate our lives, hapless Henson Joe, hapless Joe Henson. He slept soundly in the messy bed all night, and Henson was awakened by the ticking of heavy rain outside the window. This is Henson's most comfortable sleep after traveling to the United States. At this time, it was early morning outside the house, and there were not many pedestrians because of the rain. Different from the lively and bustling everywhere in China, the residential areas in the United States always seem particularly empty. In fact, it is not just the residential area, except for the lively places, almost all streets can be described as empty. Henson opened the door and found that the newsboy had put the latest newspaper of the day on the ground. He bent over and picked it up. The front page headline was the news that the Pacers lost yesterday. Indianapolis has always been a city with a strong sports atmosphere, especially basketball. Here, every move of the Pacers is a matter of great concern to everyone. Henson read the newspaper while taking out milk and bread from the refrigerator. One advantage of being a scout is that you don't have to report to the team every day. When the team needs you, they will naturally contact you. Larry Bird and the Pacers coaching staff were not so lucky. During the season, they have almost no rest days to speak of. I heard what Percy said yesterday, Bird. You mean, let the scout directly connect with you? And skip the coaching staff? At this time, in Bird's office, Jim O'Brien, currently walking the coach of the Zergs team, is asking about something in Bird's office. Bird had a newspaper in his hand, exactly the same as the one that Henson got, the Indianapolis Post. Hearing O'Brien talking to him, Bird, who combed his back, raised his eyes and glanced at his coach. Is there any problem? He asked, his tone still unquestionable. Of course no problem, this is your team, Bird, you have the final say. But if I can't get the scout report, how do I know what kind of players I need? O'Brien opened his hand. Whether it was the head coach or the president does not want the power in his hands to be reduced. Of course you can get the scout report, buddy. You are the coach of the team and we have to listen to your advice. The difference now is that Henson reports directly to me, and I will report the scout to you, and I will personally come to check. I know very well that someone on the team wants Henson to go. I did it just to be fair. And I also hope to check the draft personally. Bird continued to read the newspaper. He did not name. The last name says Percy's first name. Last night, Pritchard explained the grievances between the coaching staff and Henson. There are only a few people on the team, and Bird quickly cleared things up. Bird, I can guarantee that Percy is not malicious to Henson. Percy has always been O'Brien's person and a member of his coaching team, so he must protect his rights. I think so too. I just want to make sure that you all do your job well. That scout's job is to give me the scout report, and you, and your coaching staff, O'Brien. Yours, my job is to lead the team to the playoffs. This is not the first time Bird has made a strong statement to O'Brien. Hearing this, O'Brien also knew that the conversation between himself and Bird was enough. I see, Bird. Don't worry, I won't let you down. O'Brien left with an unhappy expression. When the president began to interfere in the work of the coaching staff, everyone in the coaching staff must be vigilant. Up. After closing the door, Bird and Pritchard were the only two presidents left in the office. Bird, are you about to start a drastic transformation? Pritchard was a little worried. It was not a wise decision to move the coaching staff as soon as he took office. After all, now, the team is slowly improving, what is needed is stability and harmony. I have a sense of measure, just ignore that, man. Help me call Henson and ask him to come over. I have a new job to assign to him. Bird put down the newspaper and picked up the ticket in his hand. After Henson got up, he hadn't finished the milk, so he called Carter and asked him to send himself to the arena. The guy Bird is definitely a very efficient person, and there is no room for procrastination in anything. But is it because the 10% trust level really works? Henson didn't think about it anymore, he walked straight to Bird's office. During this period, Henson was once again used as a cleaner by a security guard. The security finally let him pass until he took out his work permit. Knocked on Bird's door. Before Henson could sit down, the tall and strong man handed over a ticket. You are leaving Indianapolis tonight, the ticket has been prepared for you, and someone will meet you when you arrive. Hansbrough, do you know? That's the super insider from North Carolina. He will be at the University of California, Berkeley tomorrow. The branch school has a game to play. Your task is to see if this big white man is the one we are looking for. Don't mess up with me, because I don't like things being messed up. Sen was long-winded, and he explained things clearly, this is his style of doing things. Henson took the long-prepared ticket and took a look at it. The plane went straight to San Francisco at 6:30 in the afternoon. Henson was leaving before he knew his home. It seems that under Bird's work, he might be quite busy. The Basketball Court Swordsman Chapter 9, 5-star treatment. The University of California is the largest and most influential public university system in the United States and even in the world. Among them, the famous Los Angeles campus, San Diego campus, etc., belong to this huge system. The reputation of the Los Angeles campus, that is, UCLA, is even more impressive in the basketball world. But the University of California, Berkeley, or UCB, although it belongs to the University of California system, its reputation in the basketball circle is not as loud as UCLA. So this time, Henson is not actually a player from UCB. The reason why he was sent here by Bird is entirely because there is a warm-up match between North Carolina and UCB. The white forward Hansbrough of North Carolina is the main purpose of Henson's trip. Speaking of Hansbrough, even when Henson had not crossed over, he had heard the name of the white forward. Before entering the NBA, Hansbrough's basketball career has been extremely bright. In the NCAA, he can be said to have achieved the achievement of the honorary Grand Slam. In 2008, Hansbrough won the Wooden Award, Naismith Award, and was elected the Player of the Year. For 3 years in college, he has been selected to the best team of the Atlantic Coast League for 3 consecutive years. This achievement is unprecedented, and it is very likely that there will be no future. After all, he is the only college player in NCAA history to be selected to the All-American team and the best team of the Atlantic Coast League for 3 consecutive years. It can be said that this series of myths created by Hansbrough during the NCAA period is unmatched by his predecessor Michael Jordan. Just thinking about Hansbrough's resume made Henson a little excited. What is the job of a scout? It is to find a genius who is not so ordinary among a group of geniuses. And Hansbrough, he is destined to be within the scope of uncommon. After an investigation by Jules Holiday, Henson felt that he seemed to be very interested in investigating young players. It feels as if you have found a gold mine that no one has mined. Whether it is gold or stone, it will be identified by Henson. This kind of work that outlines a player from unknown to detailed makes Henson very fulfilling. In the face of a university hegemon like Hansbrough, even if the potential value evaluation of Hansbrough by the data analysis module tomorrow is A+, Henson will not be surprised. But now Henson's first task is not to observe the American geniuses, but to find the person who meets him in the airport and drive to the place that Bird arranged for him. Before leaving, Bird gave Henson a contact number. According to Bird, Henson only needs to dial this number after he arrives to get all the assistance he needs. Henson was still imagining whether Bird would match himself with a beauty assistant or something. But when he saw his connector, Henson was extremely disappointed. Mr. Henson. Hello, my name is Stephen Silas, and I am a video analyst for the Pacers. When Henson saw this slender black man responding to him, his illusions were completely disillusioned. What beauty assistants are all too naive. Henson Joe, nice to meet you, Mr. Silas. Although a little disappointed, Henson shook hands with the opponent politely and smiled. After all, compared to a broken hotel 40 kilometers away from the competition venue, Bird arranged himself well. Although the thin guy Silas had nothing to do with the beauty assistant, he was at least very enthusiastic. In this cold NBA world, Silas is almost the second person Henson has ever met who is passionate about him, the first being Carter, a taxi driver. Is Mr. Henson a new scout? Why have I never seen you before? Silas chatted with Henson as he walked outside the airport. Actually, I have been with the Pacers for 2 years, but before. I used to work mainly in Indianapolis. Henson smiled awkwardly, his predecessor's resume is really hard to get. So, no wonder Mr. Bird trusts you so much. You know, Hansbrough is the rookie that the team will focus on this year, and Mr. Bird is very optimistic about the white forward. Although Hansbrough is already well known in the United States, he still needs a particularly detailed scout report to understand all aspects of Hansbrough and ensure that the draft is foolproof. Therefore, he must need someone who is particularly trustworthy, and this person is you, Mr. Henson. Silas beckoned and stopped a taxi. The dark and thin guy also helped put Henson's luggage in the trunk, which made Henson a little embarrassed. In that case, Henson got into the car and closed the door. Mr. Silas is also Bird's confidant. Ha 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 ha, cronies are not good, but my work experience is richer and I can give you the greatest help. My father Paul Silas used to play for the Celtics and was a teammate with Mr. Bird. Won a championship. He grew up watching me, so he knows my ability to work. I became an assistant coach for the Hornets at the age of 27. I was the youngest assistant coach in the NBA at the time. Later, I am now working as an assistant coach. Germany is playing, but I'm not working on the front line of the coaching staff. So rest assured, Mr. Henson, I can definitely give you the most professional advice and help. Silas still had a friendly smile on his face, but Henson was frightened and shivered. Co-worked with one of his own assistants who are a half-scout, and his resume is so awesome. Now Henson believes that the 10% trust level is really added. Along the way, Silas and Henson talked a lot about Bird and Celtics. Of course, I also talked more about myself. This black guy born in a basketball family used to be a caddy for the Knicks, played shooting games with the son of Gorilla Ewing in the Garden, and worked as an assistant coach, video analyst, trainer and even after entering the league. Served briefly as acting head coach in the Hornets. In Silas' own words, there is nothing in the NBA that I haven't done. Henson was stunned by Silas's experience. The NBA world, it is precisely because there are thousands of guys like Silas that it will become colorful. The two chatted for a while, and the taxi arrived at the destination Hampton in Morgan Hill. This retro building illuminated with colorful lights is very domineering and luxurious from the outside. This elegant and modern five-star hotel makes Henson's eyes straight. Just 2 days ago, he was still living in a broken hotel in Long Beach. Henson followed Silas into the lobby. He could feel the wealth of the NBA team. Because if there is no money, the company will not let employees live in this kind of hotel. This is the work environment that NBA scouts should have. Working directly under Bird is really better than following that posy. Mr. Bird has arranged the room. Your room is on the 5th floor, right next to me. We are now in Berkeley, only 10 minutes away from UCB. If you want, you can go to school later. Wander around and feel the youthful atmosphere of the university. Okay, Mr. Henson, first go to your room and have a look. I have put all the materials needed for work on your desk. I will let the waiter later bring dinner to your room and I won't interrupt your work. Thank you so much, Silas. Henson was flattered. This kind of 5-star treatment was something he couldn't even think of before. Entering the room and lying on the spacious single bed, Henson felt that his whole body finally relaxed. Perhaps, today is a turning point in my unlucky life. He doesn't have to eat cheap sandwiches that are hard to swallow, or sleep on the crackish box spring. As long as you work hard with Bird, you are not afraid of not having meat. Thinking of this, Henson sat up and looked at his desk. It was filled with a thick stack of documents and several discs of the game video. He walked to the table and looked around. The file was Hansbrough's detailed game data over the years, with dense numbers written on it. The video of the game shows Hansbrough's performance in March Madness in the past 3 years. If Henson wants to understand Hansbrough thoroughly and analyze him accurately, then he must read all these documents and videos. There is meat to follow Bird, but it is certainly not for free. If Henson used to see these numbers, he would probably feel big. But now with the mind of this high-achieving mathematics student, it is easy to memorize and analyze these data. Sitting at the table, picking up this copy of the information and the video of the game, Henson immediately buried his head and worked hard. For him, this is not painful work, but an exciting gold rush. Bird's bite of meat, Henson is ready to eat it.